How's it going, man?
Good. I like starting this like immediately after taking a hoot, and then like, hey, let's talk about tolerance breaks.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about that. I'm just gonna have one more hit. I was like, I got one more hoot.
Let me have another hoot.
And let the smoke just leave the room and see if anybody's thinking about tolerance breaks. Yeah, there was the conversation that I get, or the question or the comment that I get a lot of the times is how come I'm not getting high anymore? And like, good product, good supply, using it correctly, and it's just like I'm hitting this pipe every day, and I feel like I'm not getting as high as I used to. What am I doing wrong? And like, a lot of the times I tell people to change it up. It's like sometimes going from that pipe to like a bubbler or like a joint, or just changing up that method, I find is enough way for that smoke to find a different way to absorb into your lungs or a different location, and that helps too. We were talking tolerance breaks.
Yeah, like that's. I mean, I find that regardless, depending on like how long, like it doesn't really take that long. Most studies I've ever seen, it's really only a handful of days that it needs to be done. It's not weeks to be effective. Everything past that actually doesn't do too much.
No sober October.
Yeah, so well, if you want to on that level, but at least in a tolerance sense, in which you're not, firing at all cylinders all the time, and it takes you a lot to get high. I've seen a few things. We need to be able to find that. Somebody could throw that in the comments, but it was only about a handful of days, and then past that, it became about the same effect. So like 3-4 days or something was like the sweet zone. And then you can go right back at it. So, but it still seems like a lot.
No, a long time to not consume.
I think that rotation, because I found when I was doing just concentrates, that even then, when I was just hitting the bong, and then all of a sudden I just kept chasing it, and then I went to concentrates, and I was like, oh, I'm doing the same thing here too. I'm just flowing through this stuff and taking like 6 dabs before I sit down to eat or something.
Yeah.
And but now, because of this forced situation of having to like try so many different things all the time with work, which is like boo-hoo, but it just made it so that now I'm always inhaling in a different way or eating something or whatever it is, and I get higher more often now than I did when I was just doing concentrates all the time, smoking shatter all the time, whatever it was. And it's great. Like now I can have those moments where I'm like falling asleep on the couch because like I kind of overdid it again, that type of thing. It's nice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because I just, the variety, I guess it would be just like drinking a bunch of different things and getting that drunk versus like all you drank was that
right.
drunk.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think tolerance breaks are important because for people like you and I that consume so much, I think it's fair to say that at a certain point, your immune system is going to build up a tolerance to that much THC. And like, I've even noticed it, and like, I think you're right when it, like you say, it doesn't have to be for days, because like, I've even noticed like if I don't consume in the morning sometimes, and I save my hoot till like 2-3 o'clock, that can be pretty inebriating, in terms of like how hard it hits. But yeah, I totally agree. It doesn't have to be very long. But if you're finding that it's like, you're just not getting the same effects, change it up. And you know what, maybe change, as we said earlier, change up like your piece or whatever, but like also change up how, like what you're, like how it's being consumed too. So edibles might be something to try. If it's edibles you're building a tolerance to, maybe you can get back to having it on the pipe, maybe on a vape, you want to be a little healthier. Even just collect
an oil,
right?
yeah,
Concentrate.
Different mixes of cannabinoids. That's the other thing as well too. Is like if it's just there doing things like adding more CBG into the mixture, because that's just going to enhance the THC, right? And that'll give you that little upkick. I've been playing with that a little bit more lately. I've got some high CBG flower at home that I need to bust up. So
Playing with cannabinoids is a great way.
Yeah. I think that's really what ultimately is going to be my thing. I've got a friend that keeps like pushing. He's like, "Well, have you tried doing this yet?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." But it. I have some at home right now, and I need to try it because it's just I keep getting talked to about it all the time, and it seems to be that way. That like, how do I keep smoking? But screwed around the issue of the fact that I'm always smoking.
Right.
And it's like, oh, if I can just add this into the mix and on top of the stuff I'm already doing, which I see positive effects from, because it's like I'm abstaining from getting it in this method versus that method. And like honestly, when you really work it down to the fact that when you're, let's say, just burning with a lighter in a bong, versus and a joint, right? Like versus vaping it, and depending what temperature you're vaping at, you're getting a different mix of cannabinoids every, and within different temperature ranges if you adjust in your vape. But like really, you're burning it, and you're getting just fewer things because of that method. And then if you're ingesting it, depending on the source of that stuff, if it's full spectrum or if it's just like a straight THC situation, there's nothing else in it, right? Like those methods within each category has the ability to play around with that a little bit, where you're still consuming, but you can mix up the type of cannabinoids you're consuming, getting outside of the realm of THC.
Yeah, I totally agree. And now, like as I was describing earlier, it's like you can change up your method, or like switch to a concentrate. Of course you've still got your keef. You can put little crystals on top of that. Now, of course, that's increasing the dose to try to keep up with your tolerance.
Chasing the dragon only gets you so far.
Only works for so long, right? So it's like at a certain point, I think it is important to kind of like stretch out how much time is in between your doses. And like as I said, some days you have to have at 10 o'clock in the morning. Some days if you can stretch it, try to make it go a little bit longer. If you feel as if you're not getting any effect anyways, then let that go. Let that go a little bit longer.
If it's the morning you're not having your coffee anyways, then like that's a great morning.
That's a great morning to skip it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just think it's like rather than chasing the dragon, changing things up, or at least taking a break. It's a good idea. There's something valid to that. Maybe even like changing up like where you're doing it, change up everything about it, because I do feel like you can get into a routine of just like falling into just doing it because it's there.
Well, summertime, like I avoid smoking inside the house. Right. It's like every opportunity I can, I'm standing outside.
Yeah.
And it's just even to do the duck out and have the hoop kind of thing.
Right.
Just for that purpose.
Yeah.
Right. It's nice.
It is. It's a good change up.
Yeah.
It's a good change up. Yep. There's something to be said about that.
Yeah. And it's also just good to get the hell outside.
Right. Right. I do just think that like perhaps really I feel like when we think we are in need of a tolerance break, more so I feel as if like we're really just in need of a change up of really what we're consuming. Maybe you've been consuming the same supply for too long, or whether it's whatever, just change it up. I just really feel like that's what it is, because there's so many different variables to play with, whether it's the cannabinoids, whether it's the terpenes, whether it's the method, whether it's your dose. Make it comfortable, man.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's what I've learned too. I just recently planted like 8 different genetics, because variety, man. Yeah, variety. And there's another.
Having variety around
is another great.
I think it also makes everything last longer too, because you don't have that peak of where you've been smoking this for a while and now you're like, oh, I'm going through it much quicker than I was. and that's just going to keep increasing until you're out of everything. Versus you're like this.
Yeah.
You have to play around with it.
Well, and you get, it's fair to say you get different effects from different genetics, and having that variety to pick, okay, more daytime, more nighttime, a little more, creative, a little more sleepy, lethargic. What do you want? Having that ability to choose is huge, and that's why I've always told you need to grow your own. I'm a huge advocate for that. Now, of course, in this wonderful province we live in, it's just something that recreationally you can't do. You can medicinally, and that's how I managed to make my way by. And that's what you really need to be able to get a feel for this plant, and then understand that there's a lot of variables.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. There's not enough exposure to the plant directly for a lot of people, right? So it's just the product, and that's it. So they don't get the fact that there's so many options here for us, right?
Yeah.
There's not one type of apple,
right?
And but that's where the switch up. I think that's even more so than a tolerance break is just either buying different mixes of flowers, devaluing THC for certain periods to allow you to have that break and everything. And yeah, it just, you can go with it. You can keep smoking a different type of flower or whatever it is you're taking in, and you're going to get that different effect, but you're still going to take that edge off, right? You're still going to get a lot of that lethargic feeling without the stone. And in a recreational sense, that might not be as fun, but if you're an all-day person and you're just trying to work on how much you're going through, it's a great method.
Yeah.
I think it works really effective, and it still allows you to have the day that you still want to have, right? Without totally abstaining. So
that's fair.
Options.
That's fair.
But it's just nice that you can do that now, because I didn't know what half of these things were pre a lot of this legalization and stuff, right? And especially there was no isolating.
It was so taboo. If you did hear about it, it was so taboo.
Right.
You know what I mean? Getting a decent source of information from somewhere.
Right. So it's just having that as an alternative method is just really neat.
Right. When have you ever taken a tolerance break?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't know. I think that there's.
Have you ever?
I've been in situations
for any reason.
No, I've been in situations where, when I was younger, if you didn't have money, so you didn't have any for those few days, or you're going res hoots or
that doesn't count.
Swim Keef, no, those don't count.
No, those don't count.
And I don't think I've ever intentionally gone I'm gonna stop. I've just been figure out a way to buy more weed, I guess.
Right. So the weed's weird.
Yeah,
no, that doesn't count.
No,
definitely not.
I can't remember. There might have been a time, but I don't think so.
You've never had to not smoke for any reason whatsoever? Other than
I've never had a job at a piss test or anything. So.
Right. No. Okay. I remember. Yeah, it was a reason why. It wasn't I was just I need to get a tolerance break.
Right.
Because I've never challenged myself. You know what I mean? Be how long can I go for?
Oh, I'm not that.
I feel like that's so pointless. I'm why would I do that to myself?
Yeah, I've gone a day and then come home and get high. Right? There's a bunch of stuff going on that it just couldn't have happened.
Right. Couldn't happen.
Yeah, one of those days.
I've had that where it's I only got high in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a long time ago, because those days don't happen often anymore, because I will refuse to let that happen. I get a fanny pack full.
I have different flexibility in my life now. I don't have to deal with this.
I'm not allowing this whatsoever. But yeah, I remember I was going to join the RCMP, and maybe it was the military too. I was lost. I was going to join somewhere with structure.
Yeah,
and
clubs are fun.
It was a piss test. You had to take a piss test, right? So I remember, I think I made it. I think the goal was a week, and I think after 3 or 4 days, I was well, I guess the military's not for me.
Yeah, the decision's made.
Yeah. I was gosh,
Yeah,
it's not fair.
I immediately made the decision that those things, anything that wasn't going to allow me to do that, just wasn't for me.
Didn't matter.
Just yeah, well, that's cool. Those aren't options. Yeah, it just ruined it. I don't know. I I don't think once. I don't think I've once tried to take a tolerance break.
No,
it's just been because I haven't had money to buy weed.
Right, and like you're right. There's been those times where it's like something came around. Is what I had a hoot and maybe the battery died on the vape or something. It's like we have a hoot maybe 9, 10 in the morning, and then you don't get another one until 9 or 10 at night.
Right.
And then like my palms are sweating, and like I'm edgy, like I'm
full of withdrawals.
Yeah. And people and like I made a video about this, about withdrawals, and people were like, "You can't get withdrawals from weed." I'm like, "But you can get withdrawals from anything, man."
Yeah.
Like if you were like, did you get into any good TV shows like Game of Thrones or something?
Yeah, and
when that ended, yeah. You remember when that ended? And you were like, ah. When I didn't watch it, but I used to watch other TV shows, the OC, and when it ended, I was like, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was like, how could this happen? That's withdrawal. That is withdrawal on the basic form. It's withdrawal doesn't mean that you're like, vomiting or on the edge of death or like there's
body's used to this chemical mix, and you're
right,
not getting
right. Stop drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Stop drinking coffee and tell me how quick you go into withdrawal. Maybe some will handle it much better than others, for sure. Naturally.
Consumption levels, but that's the same as drugs anyway.
Right, right. I was able to quit doing very heavy drugs. A lot of people, some people can't. It's just that's the chemical makeup, the mental makeup. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? But to say that there's no withdrawal, and they also there was another one about overdosing. I made a video about overdosing on cannabis, and people were like, you can't overdose on weed. I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah, like there's
if you think overdosing means like foaming at the mouth and then dying.
Right.
No, that you're right. But that's just what happens when you overdose on one particular drug.
Right.
Or you know what I mean? Like you can overdose on anything. That's why we have dosages.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so I used to have friends, shout out to my buddy Lodi, I used to have friends where it's like they would come to my house. I'm sure we've talked about this before, but they would come to my house and I'd grind them up something real nice, and I'm smoking out of something magical. A science experiment.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sure, I'll smoke out of that too. And silly me, thinking, sure, I'm enabling this, not taking into consideration that in 15 to 20 minutes they're going to be
useless.
Yeah. And gone. And like, I thought we were going out tonight, kind of thing. And they're just like, and so that is an overdose.
Yeah.
I've seen people overdose on edibles where they're like, anxious, paranoid, crying, freaking out by the toilet. You overdosed. Overdosed.
I didn't cry by the toilet, but I had to be helped to the car.
Yeah.
And then my girlfriend at the time drove me home, and it was like because I couldn't. I was either gonna sleep there or I was gonna be helped out.
That's right.
Because
There was
I ate way too much.
You overdosed.
Yeah.
There were no fear of dying.
Yeah, I know it gets used as green out, but
greening out.
Greening out. Yeah. But that's
overdosing.
That's overdosing. Yeah. Are you having adverse effects to the thing you're doing? Yes. Stop doing them. You've overdone it. Yeah.
Sorry to break that down. Yeah. And that's a reality of cannabis is that
it's just it's one of those effects where you're like, you can't feel that bad from it. It's your fault. And drink some water, take a nap, you'll feel fine.
Yep.
Yep. That's the difference.
That's the difference. And so there are some realities too.
Yeah. Not all of them are cardiac arrest.
No.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And I've overdosed. I've smoked enough herb where I was like feels like nauseous to your stomach.
Yeah.
But it's like but I smoked enough weed to know that that's gonna pass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You aren't gonna throw up. You aren't gonna die. You're not gonna
you
be
can sit with it for a little bit.
Yeah, you'll be just fine. Give it 15 minutes and
that's
gone.
Yeah, do your best to drink something.
That's right. You just smoked a little too much, bud. And so a lot of it, I'm not going to say it all is, but a lot of it can be mind over matter too, and just knowing how to get through it. But that's an overdose, and so I just there's a lot of stereotypes out there that a lot of people either will subscribe to or not. But overdosing and what was the other one I said? We were just talking about right before that.
Tolerance breaks.
No, right after that. Overdosing and then what we said, the reality of it. Whatever. That's weed.
I have to check the table on that
Yeah,
one.
I'm gonna have to check the tape. I thought there was some over. I know there was. I just can't remember what it was. No, maybe it was just on. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. When was the last time you lost train of thought? Say I don't remember.
Yeah. That's the problem.
That's a side effect. Yeah, that's
the issue.
that's
Tolerance breaks. Hey, as we go through this, like maybe it's a good idea. Oh, mistakes.
Got some. Now we can change the scene over to me. But now, and so now, this is how you abide by the community guidelines. Yeah. This is how we will stay existent over here. But bringing my friends over and giving them the right amount.
I find like especially tolerance breaks, anyways, from like casual users or the nighttime sleeper people, right? That's their end of the day, their nightcap. Like I find that very common with people that have more of a regimen with cannabis, more of a regular use situation under a time frame, right? That fits into their lives. I see that more often with there because like if you're already sparingly using, you don't need a tolerance break.
No.
And if you're an everyday user that's either medicinal or something, like that's not going to do you any good anyways. And if you're just, that mixed person that uses a little heavier, such as myself, that's again, I don't know.
I don't know, man. I
think I had to do it too often.
I allegedly may have just had a pretty big rep, and I'm pretty fucking
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing is like when they talk about this, I'm like, I don't know. Because the other step is just me doing acid, right? Like,
so it's
like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, what are you
chasing?
This is cannabis. Yeah, what are you chasing? And it's like, this is cannabis. I'm not expecting lights and stars and sunshines and rainbows, or those aren't the marshmallows, but like it's just that's not the thing.
Right.
My expectation out of this experience. It's not what I really appreciate about an experience such as this on a day-to-day thing, anyways, for me. And so I don't want that.
No, me neither. But I do think it's like sometimes I do function at a different level when I'm not immediately high.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, and a lot of this time is first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
First thing in the morning, I used to wake up, come downstairs, get high. It'd be one of the first things I did. But recently, like years it's been where that's not how it is. It's like I'll get up, function. Family needs to be fed, kid needs to have his school stuff taken care of, out the door, wife's getting ready, and so there was no time. There was just no hoop. And it's not that I couldn't do that not high. It's just didn't have time for me yet, and so I'm finding where it's like send them out of the house. It's 8:30 or 10 to 8 or whatever, and then I come downstairs and I set up everything in front of me in terms of like work to be done for the day, and I just start going,
Right.
And then I guess maybe that's an addiction to work too. I think that
Yeah.
You know what I mean, where it's like I just can't wait to.
That's the only thing that really gets me distracted from doing those things. That's the only thing that will get me out the door without going I didn't have a good food.
Right.
I had to work.
Right.
So
and it's like I do know though that I'm also surrounded by good product. I'm surrounded by weed, so it's like sure I can stretch that time frame a little bit longer. I don't have to leave the house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There is no rush because I remember a lot of those times where I get up and go. It was because in 45 minutes I got to go to work.
Right. You're gone.
And it's like I had to get high enough to last 8 hours.
Right.
And
it's
so
a different problem.
It was a different problem. So I do find myself pushing it a little bit longer during the day, and then I do get the most out of that. That 1 o'clock. Yeah, after lunch.
But I think that's really the growing with it in our lives thing, where it's worked itself into our day, really at a more appropriate times. Because I think more constructive times as well too.
Yeah.
And really, just like you said, being respectful of what's going on around you. It's easy to go and have the hoop prior to doing all those setup things in the morning, getting food started, all that other stuff. Or you don't. Like, it's one or the other, really, but it's how the flow of the day goes, the necessity for it at those times. And, like, you just find that less and less it has to be done prior to every living breath you have. But, at the same time, it's something that, like, I still need in the bath. Like, there's still a good percentage of the day.
Yeah.
But it's become from an almost pitchfork situation where I have to be high all day.
Right.
And it's like, I'm high all day. Get over it.
Yeah.
Like,
you're right. And I'm not consuming any, I would say I'm not consuming any, just because I pushed my hoop back.
Right.
I'm still consuming between that 1.5 grams a day.
Yeah.
Give or take. Sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the occasion.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I've got it dialed into, it's a bowl, to have a dose. It's one bowl, hit it, go. I'm good for a couple hours probably.
Yeah.
And
yeah, especially during the day. That's the thing. It's quite different from what at nighttime.
Right. Nighttime you might be doing it every 45, half an hour.
Second.
Yep.
Yeah. 45 seconds.
Boom, boom.
Yeah,
boom,
you're
boom.
doing back-to-back bowls and stuff like that. But like during the day, it's just you have a top up, and then you go back outside and tear more patio stones out of the ground, or do whatever you're doing, like cut the grass. It's just they're top-up situations. It's not I need to be zombied.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe if you find, like, why would you want to take a tolerance breakdown? Might be another question. It's like maybe rather than you're finding that you're not getting enough. Maybe you're finding you're getting too much. Maybe sometimes, maybe 2 o'clock's hitting you way too hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe you're finding that you're falling asleep at 7 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. Maybe your dependency is too high. Maybe you are because there is a reality. We can smoke too much. There's your bad hand. We can smoke too much.
Yeah.
It's like you're still healing from that injury from weeks and weeks ago.
Yeah. the old
injury. Yeah. But it's
football injury.
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes. I do notice that I can get more done. Like I said, with less herb. And that's that.
Yeah, go figure.
Yeah.
I think it's just degrees and how, time setting.
That's it.
Like
So if you're struggling, where it's like maybe you find that you are not sleeping very well, maybe the answer isn't more, maybe it's less. And I'm saying that to somebody like you and I. We're not the casual smoker.
Right.
We're smoking every day, and not just a little bit. I wasn't joking that I smoke between 1.5 to 2 grams a day.
Yeah.
And that's pretty close. That's pretty close. And that's not including it. That's just bowls of bombs, right?
I'm filling my grinder a couple of times a day.
Right.
2-3 times a day.
Right.
And so it's like, that's got to be about
So it's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to exaggerate it, but I'm trying to be pretty consistent. But it's like,
it just depends on the day.
maybe that's your answer. Maybe waiting till later in the day. Maybe if you say you're thinking maybe you're wait, because I heard, and take it for what it is. I think it was on a Joe Rogan epi or something, and he had a doctor on there, and he was saying if you cannot consume caffeine for an hour and a half after waking up, you wake up better.
Oh yeah, yes. Actually, I think I heard this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious but unsure if
because you have to get past that little drowsy feeling.
The drowsy phase.
And once you get that, then your body naturally kicks in.
Right. And because if the caffeine kicks in before you get through that phase, your body becomes dependent on the caffeine, and once the caffeine's gone, so
and it's actually, I think with that one too, it was your dependence on not wanting to feel like shit that became what made it addictive. It's not it's not one of those things where caffeine itself is addictive. It's just your body likes feeling like it's running on all cylinders all the time. Right? Like it really enjoys that. And so it doesn't go, do I want to feel like crap, or do I want to make you go make that magic bean
or
juice?
be constructive, or
and we can do all that stuff like right now. You don't have to wait, that, right?
That's it.
Like,
that's it.
That's true.
That's it. So I guess there's a time and place, and it's optimizing that dose. It's knowing when you're going to be at your best with how much and when, really, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I think tolerance breaks are important, but sometimes I think if you're not getting that same feeling that you were before, you know, maybe changing it up might be the answer for you, you know, and that's something I personally do. I've got so many glass pieces, and someone might ask, why on earth do you have so many glass pieces? And the reality is that it's like something as nice as some of these is great, but then I've got this like very crude water bottle pipe back there that hits like a jackhammer, man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's different hits, you know, and different pieces can change it up too. So it's like you like bongs, but you don't want to do pipes because I hate pipes myself. Right. Well, change the piece up. You know, do you have to go buy a new piece? No. Maybe you could make something. Maybe you can make a lung. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like we use more of a bubbler piece for during the day because it's smaller, you're taking smaller pulls, all that other fun stuff. I don't need to get racked. It's the middle of the day.
Right.
And then there's much larger pieces that are used at night. If I'm just chilling around with friends, watching a movie or a show.
Yeah, no obligation. I know where to go.
Yeah. Like that's the thing is it doesn't have to be that same thing all the time. No. But a lot of that too.
You don't have the money for something, roll a J. Yeah. That helps.
Which is still one of my favorite methods anyway.
Right. Great change up. I know I'm gonna get high if I smoke a joint.
Yeah.
Like, I know I am, and my throat's gonna never forgive me.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna get high.
But that's why it's like, you know, there'll be a joint in a day, there'll be some hits at the bubbler, we'll be vaping at night, maybe I'll have a big bong out, depending what's going on, right? Like there'll be some variety kicking around there. Yeah. A vape pen if I'm at work for a little bit or something.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah, the vape pen. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, because that's
on the couch with the iPad in my lap, and then I'm just like
change away. Exactly.
Spreadsheets. Yes.
Convenient. Yeah. Here we go. Convenient. You know, change up, and it's not necessarily that expensive if you're already purchasing, and and I guess if you're growing your own, it's like switch up the genetics. You know, get some new flowers in the tent. Try something new. You know, that's where I'd be looking at. But yeah. Do you need a tolerance break? And if so, why? You know?
Yeah.
And what can you do to either to take a tolerance break, or what do you need to do to change it up so you're just getting the most out of your product?
I'm really gonna look at this extra cannabinoid situation.
That's a great idea.
The high CBG flower mixing in with bowls and stuff. I'm really interested to see how this goes.
I think that's where we're going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like picking a pizza, man. Some people like pineapple, some people don't. You know? Yeah. So it's like, I'll take this, I'll take that, none of those, this, and then I'll check out. Thank you. Right. And away you go. Yeah. That's how it should be with our product for our weed. Where it's like, you know, I don't want any bedtime.
Yeah.
I want all hello kid. Like I want
hello. Clean the house.
Here we go.
Yeah,
I want to get things done. You know, we'll get there. We'll get there so you don't have to take a break. That's good. Just checking out things, but no, that was a great conversation, man.
Yeah. I think I'm not going to take a break, but I'm really interested in playing with this other stuff. Like I said, it's just been top of mind lately because I get talked about it a lot with a lot of people, and it's kind of interesting to see everybody's always got a different method for it. So.
That's true. Yeah, that's very true. But that's what we think. If you want to check out more, go to highlymotivatedproductions.ca. Check on everything the latest Highly Motivated.
Our Instagram, talk to us on Twitter.
Yes, High and Motivated on Twitter at
Highly Motivated Productions.
Yes. Isn't one of them High and Motivated, or is that the tag?
That might be the tag.
Okay, you're about right. Highly Motivated Productions.
It's all on the website.
You'll see it. That's why, that's why highlymotivatedproductions.ca. Great conversation, brother. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.